The first thing I noticed wasn't that my daughter wouldn't speak. It was that she didn't reach. When they brought her home from the hospital, everyone was so relieved. The doctors, my husband, my mother. They stood in the doorway as the orderly helped her into the house, praising her bravery, her strength, her recovery. Someone said, "She looks good," and everyone nodded like that settled it. She walked on her own. She breathed normally. Her eyes tracked movement. She even smiled when prompted. But when I knelt in front of her and opened my arms, she didn't step forward. She stood very still, head slightly tilted, watching me like I was something on a screen. "Sweetheart?" I said softly. She waited half a second, just long enough to be wrong, then lifted her arms and placed them around my neck. Her touch was light, careful, like she'd learned where to put her hands by watching someone else do it first. Everyone else missed that. They always do. The illness had been sudden, a fever that wouldn't break, a night that ended in sirens and hospital lights and doctors who spoke in careful tones. For 3 days, I sat beside her bed, listening to machines breathe for her. On the fourth day, she opened her eyes and smiled. On the fifth, they said she was fine. She might be a little quiet, the doctor told us. That's normal after trauma. Normal. Such a generous word. You can fit almost anything inside it if you try hard enough. At home, she moved like she remembered how. She ate when food was placed in front of her. She followed instructions. She nodded when asked questions. She smiled when someone smiled at her. But she didn't initiate. No questions, no complaints, no wandering curiosity, no sudden laughter at nothing. She didn't hum while she colored or sung to herself in the bath. When she played with her toys, she arranged them carefully and left them that way. If I didn't speak first, the room stayed silent. "She's just tired," my husband said when I brought it up. "She's processing," my mother insisted. "Give her time." The pediatrician ran tests. Everything came back clean. Vitals perfect, reflexes normal, cognitive responses appropriate. "She's a good listener," the doctor said with a smile. That word again. Good. At night, I began to notice the sound. It wasn't loud, just a faint tick when she shifted in bed, like glass touching glass. I told myself it was the house settling, the radiator, anything but the truth creeping up my spine. One evening, while brushing her hair, my fingers slipped. Instead of the warm resistance of skin, I felt something smooth beneath the strands. Cool. Too cool. I froze. My daughter didn't flinch. "Does that hurt?" I asked. She waited, then shook her head. I pressed a fingertip gently against the skin at the nape of her neck. There was a faint sound, a tiny, crystalline ping. I pulled my hand back as if burned. "What was that?" I whispered. She tilted her head and mirrored my expression. Concern, confusion. A perfect copy, performed just a breath too late. That night, I dreamed of holding her as a baby, only she was heavy, rigid, and transparent in my arms. Light passed through her chest, bending strangely as if something inside was wrong. I woke with my heart pounding and found her standing in the doorway of my bedroom. She hadn't made a sound. "I couldn't sleep," she finally spoke. Her voice was soft, yet flat. Every syllable placed carefully, like reading from a script. I sat up and reached for her without thinking, but she stepped back. "I'm okay," she said quickly. "I didn't mean to worry you." She was already learning what she was supposed to say. The cracks appeared a week later. At first, I thought it was my imagination. A faint line at her wrist, another along her collarbone, hairline fractures beneath the skin, visible only when the light hit just right. I asked my husband to look. He squinted. "I don't see anything." I showed my mother. "She's pale," she said. "That's all." When I took her back to the doctor, he frowned at the marks, but shrugged it off. "Skin can do strange things after illness. Dehydration, stress." "She makes a sound when I touch her," I said. He smiled gently. "You're exhausted." That was the moment I realized something terrible. Everyone needed her to be fine more than they needed her to be real. The sound grew louder over time. Not always, only when she moved too quickly, or when she was surprised, or when I touched her without warning. A soft chime, a brittle scrape. One night, I woke to find her sitting on the floor of her bedroom, surrounded by handheld toy mirrors. She sat perfectly still in the center, head turning slowly as she watched herself from every angle. "What are you doing?" I asked. She looked up and smiled. "Practicing." "Practicing what?" "Being good." I crossed the room and knelt in front of her. "Sweetheart," I said, my voice breaking despite my efforts. "Can you tell me how you feel?" She opened her mouth. Nothing came out. A thin crack split the corner of her lips. Clear fluid beaded there, not blood, but something translucent that caught the light. I pulled her into my arms, but she didn't hug me back. Instead, she trembled, and the sound that came from her was unmistakable. Glass under strain. I screamed. They took her away the next morning. Specialists, therapists, observers behind glass walls. They told me she was dissociating, that I was projecting, that stress and grief can distort perception. "She's stable," they said. "She's compliant. She's responding appropriately." Through the observation window, I watched her sit quietly, hands folded in her lap, reflecting the calm concern of every adult who spoke to her. She looked perfect. When I pressed my palm against the glass, she did the same from the other side. For a moment, our hands aligned. Then the cracks spread. A spider web of fractures raced across her face, her arms, her chest. The sound was deafening now, shattering layered over silence. The staff rushed in, alarms sounded. Someone pulled me away. Through it all, my daughter never screamed. She simply looked at me, really looked at me, for the first time since she'd come home. And in her eyes, I saw fear. The glass collapsed inward, and when it was over, there was nothing left to hold. They never found a body. They told me she'd suffered a catastrophic episode, that sometimes trauma presents in incomprehensible ways, that I should seek counseling. No one used the word replacement. Sometimes when I pass her bedroom, I swear I see movement in the glass of the window, a shape practicing expressions, waiting to be seen. She came because everyone needed her to exist, and because no one wanted to wait for my daughter to come back.